So close the loop, very simply. Hear what someone is saying, confirm, reflect back. And if you can do that, and it works with everybody, it's with my kid, my wife, anybody surrounding me, because a lot of times we infer something that is coming to us.
Welcome back to NeuroConversant Leadership, where we talk about effective communication and leadership, especially in the STEM and technical workplace. I'm Jeremy Doran, and I love helping engineers become great leaders. Today, we have a special guest, David Goyal. He's the founder and the CEO of Think.ai. David, welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for inviting me. And it's a great cause, so I'm great to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. And you're also the founder of Disabledpreneurs. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, so I've been a disabled entrepreneur all my life, since I was 6 months old, and that's a cause near and dear to me. And I'm moving towards my next phase of my life, 53 years old, so I want to give it back to what I've learned and earned, and hopefully I can create disabled entrepreneurs like the youth kids who are disabled, have some motive to do different in the world, and that's the goal.
I like it. You're 53 years young.
True,
Still growing and trying new things.
true.
So but you're the founder and the CEO of Think.ai. How long has that been the case?
2018 is when we set up Think AI with my friend and business partner Manish Pardia. And yeah, that's my actually ninth venture, believe it or not. And five of them were miserable failures. But I couldn't change that. I don't want to change that. I learned a lot through that. And Think AI is a very successful venture now. We've been winning INC 5000 for last 2 years. We're gonna do this, I think, this year as well. So pretty proud of that.
Great. And how big is Think.ai now?
Think AI is around 60 to 90 people, depends on the projects and what's happening.
Great.
But around 90, I would say.
Okay. And how did you start out your career?
So I did in engineering, in telecommunication, and didn't like that so much.
What didn't you like?
So it was a pretty boring thing. You have to do a lot of email selling. That those are the days. It's 90s, right? Like very early 90s, late 80s, you could say. And things were pretty rough and dry. And it wasn't about the technology so much, and so I did not like it. And I did international business management after that, and kind of landed a job to set up an operation in my home city in India. And they were into biotech programming, and I kind of loved the subject. And so they said, why don't you also learn this? So while being an operation manager, I started learning coding. They rated me. I got 94 out of 100, I think. And they said that was C++ on Mac and other computers. And they said, okay, jump in. And that's how I landed into the career of technology and software development.
Congratulations.
Thank
But
you.
you went to school for engineering, is that right?
Yes.
And how did you find the transition from being trained to be an engineer into a leadership role? Because it's not always easy for people. It's not easy for anyone to make the transition into a leadership role. And engineers tend to have a few extra struggles. So how's that for you?
Very true. And for me, it was different. I don't want to lie. Because of my own disability, I always look for opportunities to change something within me and things around me. And so I relied on different things like, doing music, composing music, going into concerts. So that gave me an ample of opportunity to stay in public, understand different types of people, attend, youth festivals and things like that. And so I was always framed to be a leader. I think I knew that when I was 16 years old. I don't want to work with somebody or work for somebody, but really create an environment for everybody to work with me. So that was probably the transition more than engineering.
It's interesting how having extra challenges can help some people just be more adaptable. Even something as simple as being left-handed, they found that they're more creative problem solvers just because most things are designed for right-handed people. So they're constantly striving to find new ways to adapt and to do things. And And it's not just the left-handedness that then extrapolates into everything else.
That's very true. And if you see some of the great leaders in the world, it may be a debatable thing. Steve Jobs had dyslexia or some kind of learning disability. I had dyslexia too. And I see Staples owner Thomas, I'm forgetting his last name. He was blind, and I can't believe it that he has created something back then which was millions of hundreds and millions of dollars worth, and that grew into a concept of office products and things like that. So I truly believe the limitation is your in mindset, and you see not just people with physical handicaps and mental handicaps too. And even if they do not have anything mentally ill, they still have shortcomings. It's a thought that matters, right? It's the mindset that matters, and that's what I also coach my team. That and my son, who's 15 years old, by the way, and I constantly keep telling him, it's what you decide to do is what you can do. It's not the other way.
I like it. Yeah, it's amazing how many leaders have some issue that they struggled with. And sometimes it's not even a diagnosable thing. Like, I don't have dyslexia and, I don't have a named thing, but I will tell you, growing up, communication was very hard for me. And people just rarely made sense. And what it forced me to do is pay really close attention to what happens in communication. And so it's got me to learn a ton of things about communication that most people don't bother to learn because they haven't needed to.
Yep, it gives you that extra ability to pay attention to something which you never would have. So that's great.
And then I know I've read in books some people who have achieved that through, some of it through their struggles. They find that they can't give those same struggles to their children. And sometimes they regret that. I'm interested in, on your team, you said you have 60 to 90 people. There must be some managers within there. Were they people that you've promoted from within or that you brought from elsewhere?
Uh, so from within for sure. In fact, the foundation of my offshore team was also interesting. I had one of my engineers, Jay, who was working for one of the client, and I kind of helped him. He was ex-Microsoft, but I kind of helped him transition into a leadership role. And during COVID, he wanted to go back, and we said, okay, if you want to go back, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to have my own startup. And we said, okay, but these are the things you're going to face. So we kind of lay down the foundation for him. This is good and this is bad and this is what you need to take. And that's how the organization was set up in India. And from that, we picked up some great talents, some experience and some literally coming out of college, and we put them into an equal position, and they grew. Certain people grew faster than others, and nothing wrong with that. It's not about how much educated you are or where you come from, your background, but it's really about how deep you or how much hungry you are, what you really want to do in your life. And I look for that. And when I see that, I want to pay a lot more time to help them out.
It's interesting. I know, I think it was the book Good to Great, but it could be a different book. He talked about hiring farmers, not
Mm-hmm.
because farmers knew anything about the steel industry, but because farmers knew how to work hard. And what he wanted was someone who had the capability to learn, but was willing to work really hard. It sounds like that's kind of similar for you.
It is. And it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because this is the world, and I do want to mention this here. This is the world when AI is kind of taking over. It won't, but that's what everyone feels. And why they feel like that, because we were kind of a victim of what is needed to be done. So, mostly coders, programmers, developers, they've been given a task, and they are not really doing a lot of innovation. The innovations are different people. They are more subject matter experts, and they are thinking outside of the box. And encoders are just supposed to take one feature, one module, one function, and they just innovate. Well, not innovate, but try to find the best practice around it. And that was their stint. What is happening now is they cannot do that anymore because AI is replacing that role. So what they really need to do, it doesn't mean that the developer role or the programmer or IT role will go away. They just need to transition, just like you said. They need to be farmer with a different vantage point, and that will help them tremendously.
So, what are some of the struggles that the managers you have working for you now are going through in their development?
One of the big thing that you were asking me and that they have is a lot of times the mentality is about not about the leadership, while they can be a great leader, right? But they do not know. So what they know is I need to precisely hear what is the task given to me without even challenging, understanding, or doing a deep listening and reflection. And then they take those tasks and then they take those tasks to their team. Now, if one of their team members is having a little more thought leadership, they would start challenging it and things becomes messy. And so I started telling them, you need to start from deeper listening, active listening, and communicating back. If you can do these three things, some of the foundations of the leadership will be laid down. And the other thing I learned through the book for enterprise operating system, right people in right seat. So a lot of times, including me, could not figure out what's the right role for certain individuals. And so we need to move them across different roles until we figure out this is the right role. Example, I have a girl, and I will not name it because she will she will not like it. But she had a little bit of disability, which she considered a disability in her eye, and it's nothing. Meaning she can view everything. It just looks weird, and she considered that as a disability. So she was into HR, and HR was not her cup of tea. So we moved her into finance, and she's very happy. And she understands the numbers. She understands Excel. She understands how to work with customer on that basis. But her degree, she was a HR graduate, and then moved into finance. So one of the example, you need to figure out where people needs to be, what makes them happy, makes them excited, and where their passion is. And a lot of people all their life could not figure out what their passion is. They just keep doing what they need to do. So I feel fortunate that I had it, and then I want to give it back to others.
So, when you are helping people either transition to different roles or more specifically transition into a leadership role, you talked about some of the ways that you help them. What is the process that you use? Do you have a formal process? Is it informal? Do you use mentoring? What do you do?
Mostly mentoring and coaching do not have a formal process because I realize every individual is different. And we have teams in Canada, India, and Philippines, different cultures, different challenges, which I learned the hard way. I also lived in other countries like Singapore and Europe and France. And so you kind of identify the pattern where they will be stuck. So defining a process was very hard. So I need to listen deeply what I say I need to do and understand where their psyche is. Now some people would never wanna come in front and do the leadership that way. But they could be a back end leaders also where they may not want to do a lot of communication, but they want to help out others, which is fine. And so the level one people needs to have three things in them, and we need. So I used to identify, can you improve in the communication, meaning not the accent, like I have heavy accents right here, it doesn't matter, doesn't bother me. And that's what I tell them. Can you clearly communicate what you feel like? Can you understand someone's feeling and their cognition, and then reflect back? And then can you communicate back it to your team? If you are that person, then you come on to a level one leadership role. If you're a person who can make things happen, like a chef who wants to stay in the background, then yes, that's the kind of nurturing we need to do. A third level of leadership is they love to mentor in a way to show, meaning they cannot explain what needs to be done, but they will shadow, let's say, a junior and intern resource, and that's fine too. So we try to identify that. So you can call that as a process, but it's pretty informal.
It's interesting. What I found is that kind of the difference between consulting and training and coaching. Consultants typically come in and try to tell you what you ought to do.
Mm-hmm.
Trainers come in and teach you a bunch of things, but coaching, even if it's a formal process, is a lot more of give and take. So it is finding where the person is currently and figuring out where they need to go and helping them get there. So it's more of a framework, and
Mm-hmm.
then it gets kind of personalized for each person or each group.
Very true, very true. And the other thing I also learned is one-on-one training and coaching is good, but good up to an extent. A lot of people learn from others, from their peers. So I nowadays it's a little bit slow, but every like maybe twice in a month, I try to have these sessions, and we pick up a topic like active communication, forms of communication, how to develop a deeper listening, how to really motivate someone who's not thinking ahead or not even that, but shelled into what they are into. So we take a topic, we let them reflect their thinking. We don't record so that they don't feel ashamed of what they can say. And I always start with something which may be embarrassing to you, like, okay, how can you say that? Because that triggers a lot of conversation, and I love those conversations. So when they start hearing those conversations, a different type of coaching is done, because now they are learning by listening to others rather than really doing one-on-one. So I try both methods, and for some, community works better.
I always use a combination of both. There are some things that people need very personal touch on, but a lot of times, if I'm teaching and then they can start teaching each other the lessons that I learned in a way that works for each of them, that is the ideal.
So true. Great job.
You mentioned a question or conversation that's embarrassing or difficult. Can you give an example?
So one of the times when I landed in US, so I lived in other places, but US is different culturally. The people who have lived across the world, they would know. So I think year 2000 is when I came in here, and a good example, and this is like such a stupid story, but I did not know what the cheeseburger was, right? So to me, a cheeseburger was with something with cheese, and those days I could not eat beef. There was a religious regions in India and Indians, and so I ordered a cheeseburger and in a group meeting, and I did have it. I ate it, and then later on, when I found out that it was not cheese as a cheeseburger or hamburger, I was pretty embarrassed. But in the next meeting, I could not say that I do not like that and for what reason I like it. So that was one of the story that while you feel ashamed of a decision that you made, which was not correct, you can still express, like, I screwed up, or this is not who I am, or this is not what I wanted to do. You don't have to live with it. And cultures in India are like that. They kind of become yes men on a lot of things while they do not like to do some things. And this is a good clue to people who work with offshore. Engineers in India are amazing, as other countries too, but a lot of times they do not have a courage to say no in front of you or to argue with that. So if you encourage them that, okay, you can say no and tell me what you feel like, they'll start opening up. So that's the example we start with, and then we say, okay, what's the stupid thing you did? And then they'll come up with something, and that just a conversation started.
I am an American. I lived in Italy for a year and traveled all around Europe, and I can tell you I did stupid things in every country.
Yeah, and there are some culturally stupid things, and then at times you feel like the group you are in, like if you're in an executive group, you have to speak in certain ways, or you have to think and process things in certain ways, and that's not needed. You do need to be who you are, but it's very difficult to digest for the people who generally don't go into those places. So those are the things, like you're saying, when you are vulnerable, others will feel good about it, and then they start talking.
Yeah, and talking about feeling vulnerable, one thing we talk about very often is the willingness to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand or you don't agree or whatever the reason, if you are willing to stop and ask the question, even if you feel like it's going to make you look stupid, it actually usually makes you look smarter.
Absolutely true. Yeah. And 98% people do not have the courage to say something. 2% are, that's the example I also use. Those 2% are top 2%, by the way, because those are the ones who did something. So you are actually in a better boat and a smarter boat than a stupid boat.
Yep. So I always say I'd rather ask a question and look stupid than not ask it and remain so.
Very true.
So great. Well, how can people learn more about you and reach out to you? What's a good method?
I think the best place is I'm very active on LinkedIn and they can connect me through LinkedIn. I have my own website, davegoyal.com, and I'm trying to start. So I always start something new every year. I was not confident on speaking on platforms and just mental block, right? And so I said last year, let's start doing that. So I started doing blogging, started speaking in events now, and just recently started a YouTube channel. But my main objective is to create a school community. So at this time, LinkedIn is a great place, but I want to offer back help like disabled entrepreneurs as well as anybody else who would love to learn new things, especially in the space of data, AI, growth, and motivation. These are my four spaces. The another space is music, but I'm not gonna go there because there are very talented people out there. So that's okay with me to stay in my home. But those are the four topics. I'm gonna create a school community, like a data and AI studio, but which will have the flavor of motivation and growth. So LinkedIn is the right place to start, and we can drop in a link. It's actually Dave Goyal. If they search me, they'll find me, and I would love to connect.
Perfect. And I will put a link in the show notes so that people can find you that much easier.
Perfect.
David,
Thank you.
we need to start wrapping up, but let me ask you one more question. What is one piece of communication advice that you think everyone can benefit from?
So close the loop, very simply. Hear what someone is saying, confirm, reflect back. And if you can do that, and it works with everybody, it's with my kid, my wife, anybody surrounding me, because a lot of times we infer something that is coming to us. So because you are in a different state of mind, so you will say, oh, this is what he has said, but that may not be the case. So if you're closing the loop, you are better off. Even in your interviews, even in your job profiles, your personal relationship, just close the loop.
I love it. I've never put it that way before, but that's perfect. All right.
Thank you.
David, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of NeuroConversant Leadership. We're over 100 episodes now. And as mentioned, I'm going to be making some changes. So I would love your feedback on what changes I should make, what things I should add, what things I should take away. Please do me a favor and reach out either on LinkedIn or on my email address, which is jdoran@neuroconversantleadership.com. I look forward to hearing your suggestions. Thanks a lot. Until next time, have a great week.